Minutes of the meeting.
And I have minutes from the meeting of October 12th, which, if you want, we can either do them later tonight or at your November meeting.
Well, we figured this for the November meeting, right? That's not part of this.
No.
This is
Okay.
just for my information, or?
No, these are the minutes of that work
Okay.
session that you have.
I'll get them.
We'll save them.
Okay, so I'm looking around here, and I think we're going to be a little busy for the second item, which is resident and citizen participation.
Can I make a motion that we move that to the end and go through our other business?
That would make some sense. We get the
Okay,
business
yeah.
out of the way,
Yeah.
and then, all
Can I
right.
do a second?
Okay.
In favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passed. So we will look at the staff reports review. And we'll look at them one by one. And they're all here color-coded for me. The property manager's report.
Blue one?
That's the yellow one, isn't it?
That's Jack's.
Oh, that's the
report.
portfolio manager. The property manager report is the blue one. You're way ahead of me, as usual.
They should have had them in the other order. No,
No, they had those.
Yeah.
So this is the one where we cover move-ins and move-outs, and
Mhm. Transfers and the rent collection.
I'm going to see that it's necessary to read all of these things, or are there any of them of particular interest we should be talking about?
Is it possible, and I know they asked if we could do this, but it just hit me this time, to put on the end of the report, the last column, put what last month's percentage was at paid? Because then it's easier than going back to last month to see if
Yeah,
it's
that would
going
be
up or
useful.
down.
Let's see if we can do that.
Okay, I know they don't have a lot of room on here, but,
Well, these are generated from the computer,
yeah,
so let's see what we can do.
if they can, that's
No,
fine.
that's
If
good.
they could.
Okay.
One quart's only 50%.
66. Was that the
Four quarts?
This one,
Yes.
oh, red clover.
Moore Court is at
Okay.
50% and Ledgewood is at 48%. And there's some write-offs that were requested which will help with those a little bit.
But by and large, we're ahead of the game except for those two.
Yes, we're doing all right.
Really, more is right on the border.
Yeah.
And as usual, Sam Elliott's winning. Okay. Review the wellness and services report. The FSS, this is a biggie. Approve write-offs in the amount of $563.89, $199.95, and $2875.86. Chris, could you explain to us why we are writing
Yeah,
off
these
and
are-
why?
Well, these are debts that are left by people that have moved out. And while we write them off, and they will help with the percent collected, because that'll come off with the rent due for properties, we continue to try to collect.
Right. Writing them off doesn't eliminate
It
the
doesn't
debt.
eliminate the debt, and it doesn't eliminate us from
Our attempts to collect.
collecting, right?
Do we have to go over each of these three?
No,
Or you want
I
to
just need a
Do I
motion
hear a
to approve
motion?
the write-offs.
approve the
So
write-offs?
moved.
Oh, sorry about that.
Too fast for you.
We got a motion and a
Yep,
second?
we got a
All in
second.
favor? Opposed? Looks like the write-offs have been approved.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move to the Resident Wellness and Services, FSS, PH, Public Housing, is that? HCV, Resident Services Coordinator, Staff Coordinator, a whole bunch of requests there.
Yeah.
Rather than reading each of them, do we have any outstanding things in these reports that should be mentioned?
No, I think they're pretty complete. And a good picture of how
question, I probably should know this, but what is the Calming Quarter?
The Calming Corner is a group that Lorelei does with residents in the CA. It's just about, meditation, taking a moment, taking an hour to just be still.
Nice.
It's pretty
Yeah,
fun.
it's kind of a break during the day,
Yeah.
get
Yeah, well, that's nice.
some relaxation and stuff. I keep saying I'm gonna go, and I never do. And I could use it.
It's nice.
Yeah,
People like it very much.
So do we have a motion?
We don't need one.
We don't need it. We don't have to prove it, we just have to refer to them.
Oh, that's how we made it. Didn't know that.
HCV, Housing Choice Voucher Administrator, Shelter Plus Care and Transitions.
These are
What color are
blue,
these?
dark blue,
I took it out of
Yep.
here already.
dark blue, and this greenish,
This crazy
Yep,
color here.
those two.
Yeah.
Just to get it onto the record, just want to thank David for this report on transition to housing quarterly report. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I think especially probably for Donna and for Lori, I mean, it takes a while to learn about these.
Mhm.
Very good.
Now, this program is to help people get permanent housing on their own?
Transition is to help people who have barriers to housing, get housing,
Get
and
into
then,
something.
and then have wraparound services to help them for the first 2 years, so they become better renters and have a better rental record, and they usually go into another subsidized housing program after the 2 years.
So it sounds like it's very useful.
It is a very, very good program, and it's focused on families, so.
And Housing Choice Voucher Program, that's getting them into privately owned rental
Yes.
apartments. And Shelter Plus Care, that's
Shelter-
getting them off the street, isn't it?
Shelter Plus Care is permanent supported housing for people that have chronic mental illness and chronic homelessness.
The one thing that I found very, very interesting here, and I kind of knew this, but when you look at it, is how expensive housing is in Brattleboro.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you look at what the wages are in Brattleboro, and then you look at what these are, it's ridiculous.
It's because we're a tourist town,
Yeah, probably, I don't know,
so the taxes are high too.
tell me about that.
Well, contrary to some published reports, there is not too much affordable housing in Brattleboro.
Yeah. Yes.
If I could add, David just got these, I put them at your.
I got something right here.
Yep. So these are the proposed payment standards for Section 8 for 2018. We would request that you adopt them now because we have to start doing people's recertifications for January 1, and we would like these to be effective January 1.
Now, Section 8 is a program to help people get into private housing.
Yes.
And part of the rent is subsidized.
Yes, they pay 30%, 30 to 40% of their adjusted income, and then we.
And the money goes directly to the landlord, so he's the light.
Oh yeah, it's a great. The landlords like it.
Yeah.
So we're proposing to, on this, you can see where we are with our 2017 rents, which we had increased quite a bit over 2016. And now we'd like to put these up again. The 2018 proposed keeps ours comparable to Vermont State Housing Authority, which has tenant-based Section 8s in town. And we can absorb this this change. It may mean in future years, like 2 years out, that we may not be able to put quite as many vouchers out, but the vouchers we continue to put out will be able to be used, which has been a problem before. So, and the utility allowances, which are also attached, were not changed from 2017 to 2018. The other note on this is that the 5-bedroom number here is more for us in public housing because we use the payment standard here that you adopt as our ceiling rent or maximum rent in public housing. If people's income gets very high, this is the maximum rent they would pay given the size of their apartment.
It's a big apartment.
It is.
I see.
So I apologize that we literally just got these on Friday. But if you're okay with them, we'd ask that you adopt these.
Do we hear a motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we've adopted it.
Thank you.
So now we're going into new, old, and other business. And the first thing is monthly check signing.
The check listing, which is the green.
That's the green thing which I took out of here.
Yep.
For a change, Green Mountain Power is even worse.
Yeah.
Aggressive, huh? Well, we gotta have it.
Going out.
Gotta have it.
It's going out.
Is there any particular things you want to discuss? So let's, do I hear a motion?
Nope, you don't need, just
Don't need a motion. We're just,
review them.
we're
And
reviewing.
then the check signing.
Well, we've got the check signing listed down as
Yeah.
Chris is going to be, is signing this one, Don the next one, and I'm doing the next one.
That's right.
We want to hear
We're set.
something for the month of January.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Richard.
Okay, good. Items on the horizon, application to become a moving to work housing authority. What is that?
Moving to Work is a very interesting program. It allows a housing authority to take all of the funding that we get. So if you think about it, we get a funding in the public housing silo and the Section 8 silo and the capital fund silo. And it lets us take all that money and put it together. And then it lets us look at the HUD regulations, which as you know are quite complex and don't make a lot of sense for our community.
And it changed the other.
And they change all the time. And actually write our own. And it asks for a lot of community input, a lot of resident input, board input. It's really a process that you go through where you take your whole pot of money and you look at what are the community needs, what are the needs that you can really address, and you develop a program around that. And the major tenets of it are to help tenants become more self-sufficient, to try to house even more people than you do now with your total between Section 8 and public housing, and to overall increase the efficiency of the agency. So, for instance, for us, I think I've told you this before, in public housing, we have to verify up to 43 separate things for each individual applicant. And at recertification, we have to go through those 43 things. So any particular household can have everybody in the household can have from 1 to 43 things that we have to verify, which means we have to go get a third-party verification from a bank or, some work, whatever it is. So you can change that. You can say, we're not going to do it that way. We're not going to have 43 items of verification. We're going to allow residents to self-certify things. We're going to, if they come in with a piece of paper and pay slips, we're going to accept those. Now we can't accept them. We have to get them from the employer. Just stuff like that.
So if we get this, it's gonna streamline the way we do this.
It really does, and the orientation of it should be to, Keene has it. Keene is a moving to work. It was a very early moving to work agency, and they have a lot of self-sufficiency programs. You break out of the family self-sufficiency silo, so you can offer an escrow to virtually everybody, so that when their income rises, instead of paying more money in rent, that goes into their escrow account. You can do all kinds of creative things with it to help people save money and hopefully become more self-sufficient and move on to a better apartment. So there's a lot. There are 30, I think there are now 39 moving to work agencies in the country. The smallest is Keene. HUD has, or Congress has told HUD that they are to put out another, I think it's 100 moving to work agencies over the next 10 years, so 10 every year. And a certain number of those must be small, very small, our size, and then a certain number of medium. And really they're not looking at that much of the very large ones anymore because they've already done it. So they really like to encourage the medium and the small housing authorities to see if they would be willing to go through what will be at least a year-long process to get here. So it's...
How likely does it look that we get it?
I think because of the work we've done in supportive services, we're better off than most agency our size. I mean, it's very unusual for a housing authority of our size to have a whole group that is just around resident wellness and supportive services with a manager, and that, and we can actually demonstrate how we've used that, how we've used the organization to come up with better ways to do things that are not just better for us, but we think better for residents. Like this whole thing about rent collection, we're going to get the self-addressed stamped envelopes. If people, when people haven't paid their rent on time, the first person that contacts them won't be a property manager. It'll be a supportive services person who will be there to say, did something happen? Can we get you some help? I think Christine noted last time we met that there are agencies that will help people with past rent and broken cars and things like that, but you have to get to them right away. If you're 3 or 4 months behind in your rent, then it's pretty hard to get that help. So we think having the supportive services people be the first contact is a better way, and we can get to people sooner and help them with any barriers that got in the way of that rent payment. And there may be other things that we don't know about, but we can help them connect with services or somebody that can help them out. There are very few housing authorities that can really say they have that kind of a program, and we do. So I think
we do. I thought it was good that we do.
I think we're in pretty good shape, actually.
I didn't realize we were so part of an elite group.
Well, we've been working on it for a long time and finally got there. And so I think that in terms of an application for moving to work, we've got demonstrated success in these areas, which is what they're looking for. And the application is you put in and you say, well, we think we'll be successful. And what we can do is put in things and say, we know this will be successful because we've already done it. And if we tweak this and we tweak that, and we don't have to look at 43 things every time a household comes in, we think we can do it even better and save the household angst and streamline our operations more. So that's what moving to work is, and we.
Sounds good.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It will take a year. I mean,
Mhm.
it's easily a year. We have already signed up to partner with an agency out of Columbus, Georgia.
Mhm.
It's a large housing authority. It's a moving to work agency already, and they invited a small group of agencies to be partnered with them to use their consultants and their expertise in creating the moving to work program. So I know the ED and called them and said, oh, Len, we'd like to be in that small group you're putting together. And he said, oh, that's great. I said, good. So I think we've got some good things going for us, and it'll be fun to engage the community and the residents and all kinds of people in looking at what do we do. I mean, we've got all this money that we get,
Mhm.
and how can we use that more efficiently and that better? And then we've got property. We've got all the properties that we have. Now, Red Clover and AWR would not be in, but certainly all the public housing properties would. Maybe there's a better way to utilize those properties.
And it would be nice to be able to provide more housing too down the line.
So,
for
and
people. Yeah.
certainly we might be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it really, it's been very successful. In its early years, this is a little long, I'll stop talking a minute. In its early years, it got a little bit of a bad rap because some of the early adopters said, put a hard line in the sand and said, after 5 years, you have to leave public housing. And now it's been going for all these years, and virtually all of the moving to work agencies have said, no, that doesn't work. We're not doing that. Don't do that. If you put the right programs in place, and you put the right supports in place, and you put a transition maybe from public housing into Section 8, and then something that goes over a 10-year period, people will leave and they'll be successful, and you don't need to hold this, sort of a line in the sand over them. So
How long has Keene been?
they've been in a long time. They've been in since it started, which I think it was 25 or 30 years ago.
Wow.
So they were the very first group of moving to work agencies. So they've got a long history. We've already met with them. They've come over. They've given us a lot of help, and will continue to. And our staff spent a day with them, and were really impressed with what they were doing and the connections they were making.
I know the housing that they have is really nice. I've seen it going through the back, working in Keene, when I worked, the back streets and everything, you come across all their housing, and it's all very, very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've been able, that's the other thing. We get this $340,000 in capital improvements. I mean, that's a joke.
Mhm.
So under the moving to work, we have more ability to actually mortgage and improve our properties.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we really like to do with Ledgewood and the high rise is really look at some deep and serious energy improvements. And we don't have collateral. But under this program, we could take out a loan against it.
Mhm.
So.
It almost sounds unbelievable that you can't get a loan against the government.
No, HUD owns them. HUD still
I
has
know
that.
that to be the case.
They still have that little thing on them.
Well, moving along,
All
this
right.
is more or less of an announcement. The annual meeting is November 13th at noon at the Red Clover Commons. After the annual meeting, which is going to be short, we will have a regular meeting on the proposed new handbook policies and lease amendments. Things that we're going to be discussing now will not be adopted until then. And things for us to discuss at that meeting will have to be presented and ready, am I correct, Chris?
Yes.
So we'll move back to what we skipped over in the beginning, which is resident and citizen participation. And I guess the easiest thing to do is stick your hand up and I'll recognize you.
How many things can I talk about at once? I'm just kidding. As far as like for the next meeting, we're gonna go over this draft again tonight, and then I assume another draft will be written up if anything changes, and concerns can be handed over to Chris. But then we've got a meeting for your approval or disapproval, you know, a few days later. Well, what if at that meeting that's in, I can never remember the name of the new building, I'm sorry.
Red Clover.
Red Clove, my sister lives there too. Red Clove,
Just say the new joint.
yeah, the new joint, the new joint, you know, down the street. What if there's still issues or comments or things that we want clarified at that meeting? You're gonna adopt the changes anyway, or do we?
Well,
do
we're
we
gonna
have-
vote on adopting.
Huh?
We're gonna vote on adopting, whether we adopt them or not, that's not gonna be known until we do it.
Okay, well, I'm just saying though, if we say, okay, well, can you not adopt this or approve this at this point because we want more information here or there, is
I
it,
guess it's not gonna be adopted, and we'll have to go for Plan B, whatever that third.
okay, but that's what I was just wondering, if it was gonna be, no matter what adopted that is.
The biggest hurdle we have is that to have these effective January 1, they must be delivered to everybody November 30th. So that's the hard deadline that we're working on. Because in
It's not our
these,
deadline.
it's not ours, but it's in the handbook
to live
that
by it.
everything is effective January 1. So this board can decide that it's not going to be January 1, it's going to be February 1, and we're going to keep doing this for another 2 or 3 months. That's up to this board. But right now, everything is working on a January 1 effective date, and that means we have to have these done and out November 30.
Okay.
You have to have them out 30 days in advance of their taking
Okay, so
effect.
that makes sense, if we, for
So
some
that's it.
reason can't, you know, then the board can say, okay, we'll start this on February 1st instead.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Just to say one thing, we sat down at another meeting, I think it was an open meeting, no one came, and we went through everything. We went through what was here, we went through what you said, we had our attorney there who told us what was legal, what wasn't legal.
Yeah,
So
we're
we
here.
worked really.
No, we had another meeting.
This was a work session.
We had a work
Just
session.
for the,
Oh, okay, I was like.
So we
I
sat
don't
down and we
know.
went through every.
It wasn't
one
a
of
meeting, it was
comments.
warned. It
Yeah.
was a warned
I
meeting.
didn't see anything
This is
about it.
the only meeting that I have been notified.
It was a warned meeting. We had the
We
warning
can't
in the
have a
paper,
meeting.
and and the warning was in the comments.
You said
It was a
I don't
warned
read
meeting.
newspapers, but
It
okay.
was warned as a work session.
Right, as a work session,
As
okay.
a no action to be taken, just a work session.
So we went over all the comments, everything, and we had things ourselves who we questioned and everything. And it took us a long time, so.
Oh, sure.
What you've seen is a lot of, what you received had a lot of
There's a lot of changes.
angst involved in it.
There's a lot of changes, you know, and a good majority of them are good and okay. I do have, you know, a couple concerns
Okay.
still. And going through the U.S. government HUD paperwork, their stay is considered a stay over.
Where are you?
Let me see, I'm on the draft on page 3 of 18,
Okay.
under guests. And where is it here? And then the chapter 9 of the HUD paperwork of, let me see, February of '04. Visitors, the residents may not allow visitors to stay overnight more than 28 days in a 12-month rolling or consecutive period. And then it also goes up to, the residents may not allow visitors to stay overnight more than 7 consecutive days in a 12-month period.
What's that document?
This is the ACOB.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So we're gonna be amending that to follow this.
Okay, okay, thank you. I'm not trying to
No,
be rude,
no,
just
no,
my
no,
thoughts are
no,
going like this. With just the new guest policy, I still can't just wrap my head around that a stay over, which to me is like 24 hours, you know, is a day. If you stay over a day, that's 24 hours, but now it consists of 10 hours is gonna be considered a stay, whether it's consecutive or not within a 24-hour period. I just can't wrap my head around that logical, you know, being logical, you know, I mean, I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean, it just doesn't seem logical that you can tell somebody, or even say that 10 hours equals a stay. Well, no, a stay is 24 hours.
No, because people that work, people that go to school, people that do things outside of the house, leave for a period of time.
Right.
And then come back.
And then they come back. And that period of time, if they're working, can be 7 or 8 hours. So it's not a 24-hour period, because what we have found, and that's the problem with this, and makes it difficult, is somebody working a night shift goes to their night shift, and then they come back to Moore Court or Ledgewood or High Rise, wherever, and they go to sleep and they stay there for the whole day. That is a stay, and that person we have found, and a lot of it is reports from you folks about people living illegally with other people.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is that, oh, I'm not there at night, I'm there during the day, and they're there every single day, and they say, well, it's overnight. So that's the problem that we're trying to address, and it's not a 24-hour period, it's that it's some period of time that makes it a long stay, and pretty quickly, it looks like that person is living there.
Okay, so then.
So that's what that's trying to do.
So are you like, here it's written, but you know, I have company, Chris, that's there for 12 hours, you're not gonna come and say to me,
No.
hey, here, look.
No, this is, and that's what we have said about many of these things. These are the result of people that have taken advantage of the rules, of complaints that we have gotten from residents.
I have complained about it.
And so the purpose for these is not to go and, you know, nitpick each person, but to get those people that have consistently violated the lease, broken the policies, and for whom we have not been able to take an action because we don't have the right language. It's not your friends that are coming.
No.
You know.
And you know, my logical head thinking is if we sign onto this, and excuse my language, if somebody gets a hair across their ass, you know, whether it be in management or another neighbor, and says, well, but it says right here, you can't, no, you're wrong, even though.
You always
Do you
retain.
understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. You retain the right to, if there is a action taken, so that it have to be an action, and you can grieve that action.
Okay.
You can always grieve an action taken, and what you would do is say, look, you know, this was never intended for that, and you would make your case, and hopefully those that follow us won't be like that.
So we didn't just sit here and dream these things up, they're all in response to
she
somebody
did, I
doing
know.
something in the past, right?
Yes.
And
And
this
this
was
one,
always somebody looking for an inside edge.
this one is, it is hard. It's really hard to write this one, because that is the problem that we've had. It's the overnight, and I can't tell you how many times I've had people snickering and laughing in my face because they're not there overnight.
So
No,
to me,
honey.
an overnight meant, to me, it's like not, oh, to me, an overnight would be 24 hours, not like from dusk until dawn. To me, that's not an overnight.
So that's the problem with it. We have to find a way to word this so that
So it makes.
we can use it as an effective tool when we need to. But we have lots of people that have guests, they have family that come, they have kids that come, and this is really for those people that really do come, and you folks are the ones calling us and saying, you know, that person has been living here and they're not paying rent. And I know they've got a job because they leave every night and they go to work.
But to me, you know what, it's not so much, Chris, that they're not paying rent, it's that they're doing drugs.
Well,
And my kid is
whatever,
there.
whatever.
You
All
know?
right, so that's what that's
And
about.
I'm so not meaning to be nitpicky.
No,
It's just in
fine.
today's world, as us that grew up in the 70s, you know, it's so nitpicky and so, you know, if it's not politically correct, which I don't even know what that is anymore. I mean, so, but yeah. it's
Well,
just-
as I said, there's still the
Pretty sure
right
I
to
got you
grievance.
wrong.
Yeah, there's a right to grievance, and, these can be changed. These might be changed in the future.
So you're still willing to work with individuals, but not to a point where you're gonna get bullshitted,
Of course we would.
you know?
Of course we would.
And the only other thing that I have, if I may, because this struck me the other day really hard when I saw this, is, so we've been allowed to have portable washers,
Oh, yes,
and so now we can't?
yeah, yeah.
That's,
Can we have apartment size washers, like,
And they, at one time, many, many years ago, we had permitted people to have, I think it was portable washers, it may, yeah. And they were supposed to tell us and, all this stuff. And it's like many things, it just took off. And it's really not good for the building, and it's really hard on water usage. And that's why we have a community laundry.
What if you can't afford to, like, I have 4 children, what if you can't afford to save up quarters or something like that because you have to pay a bill? Like, that would be my problem, like.
It's the cheapest laundry in town, is all I can say. And the expense, if things go wrong with that setup, you'll be tagged with the expense, and it will be a lot more expensive than doing your laundry in the laundry room. Because the damage that will be done will be substantial. And that's part of the problem, we've had damage from these things.
And the one other thing about the laundry room, some of like the dryers do not dry all your clothes, like you have to keep re-spending
The
money.
signs keep
And
getting
if
removed.
we've asked maintenance to fix, I've actually called in a few times, and they just overlook them.
No, we get people to come in, and I will talk to Jack tomorrow about the dryers at Ledgewood and see, I mean, maybe we need to replace them, maybe they just.
I think that's
more.
what it is.
And
And
more.
we need more, we
I
actually
actually
need
have
more
things
washers and
that are
dryers, I suppose. Does that make sense to you?
I'm sorry,
We need, like, can we propose that we buy a few more washers and dryers? Because the only one big washer we have, the only big dryer we have, everybody fights over it, or they're waiting for it. One of the two.
so my question would be, do you want another large dryer, or do you want just more of the regular commercial dryer?
Can we have a large dryer?
I don't- I don't know, if there's room in that room.
That's a bad idea.
Maybe they can make
Can I-
one.
You want one more large washer, right?
Yes,
Okay. And a dryer?
yes,
And a large dryer, or
yes.
Okay, you're next.
we
I
can
think
certainly
that would be more
consider
important.
those.
There used to be signs in there, they have been removed every time they get put up. Last time they were taken down by maintenance, and when I tried to put them back up, they told me not to. The dryers work fine. The problem is, and most people don't know this, and Ledgewood, I've had to educate people, but they all vent through one vent. So if you have one dryer going and all the 6 dryers, like the big dryer's going, I think it's 6 dryers, are all shut, it traps the moisture in, your clothes never dry. If you open them, they dry perfectly fine. I never have a problem, the dryer always dries my clothes the first time, as long as you open them.
Every
Right,
time
as
I
you
use the
open
dryer,
The other dryer.
You have to
The
clean
other-
it out,
okay.
and you have to open the other dryers. My suggestion would be is if there's any way we could look into getting at least 2, maybe like a separate vent, because it literally, all those dryers, even the big dryer, is on one vent that goes outside, and it clogs up quite frequently. I've even noticed the small dryers over here can sometimes leave lint in the big dryer, like on its way through. There used to be signs up there to tell people, open them, always make sure it's cleaned 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I do, I never have a problem with the dryer. The washers, the top loading washers are getting pretty nasty and not working right though. That I can definitely say, like, that's why I think people fight over the bigger
So
washer
are you
more, because it's
saying
the only one that cleans
Just,
cleans the clothes, right?
when you used that big dryer, there was a sign that said, open all the other dryer doors?
There used to be a sign up there that
I don't
said, if you
know.
want your
I don't know.
clothes dried,
A
please
personal note.
open all the dryers that are not in use. And then underneath it, there was a quotation that said they're on one vent. And it was a sign that a few of us residents have replaced when it gets torn down, but then I think like a year ago, maintenance was like, you can't be putting these signs up, and I'm like, but the dryer, if people don't know they need to clean the dryer or not.
Okay,
And
let
I
me
see
just,
it all the time, people don't clean the dryer.
okay, let me
Because they
just,
don't know they need to, you know?
okay, so that's a problem that we need to look at, because that's,
Yeah.
that's not really the best way to vent a dryer, so.
Yeah,
we will do that.
that is causing a lot of problems. I mean, it was kind of something we could deal with when people had
And you
notes
said
and
it has the
knew.
same problem here at Hayes Court?
I don't know about here,
Oh, no,
I know,
here's fine.
I'm in Ledgewood.
You're just talking about ours here,
We're
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
I noticed the top washers
They're all
look like they're getting really worn out, and I don't know if replacing some of them, or at least having them checked.
Oh, they get checked?
They, I just noticed, like, I tried to use one the other day and it just didn't do anything. Like, my clothes were still covered in soap. It looked like it soaked my clothes. Washed them and I ended up putting them in the big washer.
Are people from Hayes Court, are they washers and dryers here working all right?
Yeah.
I haven't
Gentlemen?
heard
Well,
anything.
each one should essentially have its own vent. You know?
Well, yes, I realize that. I'm just wondering if your washers and dryers are working all right.
Oh, they work.
Oh, okay.
Each dryer should have their own vent, each dryer has their own vent here, I think.
Yeah.
We all go out one. There's one outside, we all go out.
No, they,
one.
It all goes into one
Yeah,
room.
does it? They all go in one.
Yeah,
they're all on their own,
more
but they all have
really
separate.
close to the back of the dryer.
Yeah, until it goes
That's
outside, they
why.
all go together.
And you can see it, you come in and the empty dryers have water all over.
Well, we can definitely look at that.
Can all be configuration too.
Yes.
I had one other question I get to ask, because we kind of switched the subject. The whole guest thing, like, I'm totally fine with your explanation, it makes sense to me. The only part that I'm concerned about is the consecutive or not, because the way you're explaining it to me, if somebody's staying there, it seems like it would be consecutive for at least 3, 4, or 5 days a week, you know? And like because I'm like, what is this, like, somebody's gonna be living there because they stayed out of this contents, but they only stayed like 4 days of time?
No, that, the consecutive or not, Kim, applies to the 10 hours. So if somebody's there for 10 hours
Yeah, but,
consistently, over 7 days consecutively, and they're there for 10 hours, but during that 10 hours, they leave for an hour, we still are able to look at this language and say, we think you're living there. That's 10 hour, that the consecutive or not applies to the 10 hours, not the days. It's 7 consecutive days.
okay, so that replies to the, okay,
Yeah.
okay. No, I'm fine with that, I was
applies to
just,
the hours.
I was interpreting it as needing the days,
No.
and that's why I was like,
No, no,
why
no,
would we need the
no, no,
not
no.
if you're looking?
No,
Okay.
it's the hours.
Thank
because-
you.
So that's just a little out for people that say, well, you know, it wasn't 10 hours, it was 6.5, because I left for 3.5. So, and yesterday I left for 2 hours. I mean, it sounds silly, but I'm telling you, this is what people tell us to get around the rules, okay? So this is exactly what we hear. You're coming to us and going, that person's living here, and then we go and say, you're living here, and they go, no, let me tell you, I'm here, I wrote it down. I mean, it's like, okay, so that's,
Yeah, it all makes sense to me.
that's why
I
we
mean,
end up with this, okay?
I think it's a, I actually totally agree with this, and I think it's a good thing that I hope it really does solve.
Well, I hope it
Taking the
helps.
problem I'm familiar
You know?
with and complained about. I was just,
I hope
but
it
thank you for the clarification. I was
Yes, that's it, it applies not
understanding
to
it right.
the,
But
You got another one.
No, well, just back to the portable washers, I really wish and hope that you guys would really revisit that.
Please,
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 I mean, just so please.
yeah.
Um,
It's actually harder
for families.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is.
But let me just say this, if you're using that stuff, you're not getting charged for it. People at Moore Court have their washers and dryers, and they're paying for that.
I'd rather
So-
get charged a
You
little bit
didn't
extra.
pay for it and pay for it because
You
my
were
original
supposed to.
was-
You were
I was gonna
supposed
say-
to.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And
that.
that's what
In the
happened.
lease, it says
And
we're supposed to.
Cause I was like, I know
have
the
one.
original lease, I
That-
remember seeing
so-
it.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we said, look, they're not good. They're not good for our property, and they're not good, they're not a good system, and they do cause significant damage, which you're gonna have to pay for, right? And the original language was that you were supposed to tell us. And over time, people don't tell us. So we got these portable washers and dryers everywhere, and nobody's charged for them. And over at Moore Court, they've got their washers and dryers, but they're paying for them. And they've got setups for them. It's built to have them. It's not portables that are
Can we meet in a
damaging the
common,
property.
not to cut you off, can we meet in a common ground then? Maybe,
Somehow, like,
if you do have a washer or dryer, if you buy one, well, washer, because I don't think we have the dryer hookup. You'd have to pay what, $20 for it to be there? I don't know, like, I don't know how they do it over Moore Court, I don't have a washer, you know what I mean?
we're
So,
having
like, I'm trying
inspected by maintenance.
to think
if it
about
needs a working
something that would
order.
make sense.
Not having a
I-
washer, and I hate to do this, but I understand the wear and tear on the plumbing.
No, it's really hard in
Because
the building.
it really does, like when somebody's
Yeah, but when you have
using the
multiple
washer at the
kids-
other
when
end
you
of my
have
building.
multiple kids,
Yeah,
like,
but
it
when you're
tends to be
using the
harder
water
to
at the other
have
end
to
of the building to
drive that to
run
the
your
washer and
washer or
dry.
dishwasher, the other end of the building will literally, like, there's been times where I get nothing but air out of my pipe because somebody's washing and dryer three doors down. Even with dishwashers,
I
noticed
get that, but when you have multiple children or you have like the elderly, some of them have washers in their house, like what if they can't pick up what if they physically can't pick up the basket or whatever their dirty clothes are in and bring the stuff over to the washer and dryer? What if they can't physically do that?
I can tell you there are a lot
But
of
if we can
services
only-
available for the
Yeah.
elderly that will help
That's
them.
why you have
Or
hospitals and stuff
multiple
like
families,
that.
like I have multiple kids, like it's kinda hard for me to
my kids
do
help.
that.
I'll be happy to talk to
Can we
Jack
just please
about
think about
this
this?
issue, but I can tell you that that's what happened. Okay, they went on inspection and they said, where did all these come from? And I said, well, I can tell you what happened like 8 or 10 years ago. We said, this is what we sort of cut this deal. And like many things, it just, never got really finished and just sort of took off. So, I will talk to Jack and, because it's really more about the building, the wear and tear on the building systems and the water and all of that, and see if there's any way that he and Courtney can see allowing him. I think it's gonna be tough, but I'll see, I will see, okay?
There's
Please,
technical
yeah.
problems
Thank
we have to look at. And if the technical problems can be overcome, then we have to see how to pay for it.
Well, we're gonna have to start, the tenants are gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah, I would rather pay an
How do they
extra,
do it?
yeah, I'd rather pay an extra
And-
$20 a month to be able to save 25.
Somebody's gotta
I don't
determine that
agree,
number.
if I literally pay $40.
Well,
a
yeah,
week.
so the
That's
technical
what I'm
problem
saying.
is the wear and tear.
That's-
of
I'd rather give them
and
$20 a
as
month to
Kim
use
said,
my
people
own
down the line
versus spending
on those
50.
water,
even
on
at
the
the
water
cheap-
lines,
or
don't
low
have
water
water.
pressure.
So,
You got
Yeah.
kids.
That's
got
probably-
five
So we have
kids.
to-
It's kinda hard to hear.
Sorry.
so
My
I
little knowledge of piping, I do know it can
I
cause those
will-
kind of issues too.
I will
But-
definitely talk to Jack about it, and we will look at it, and we will also look at the issue of the water down the line, because Ledgewood was not built for there to be washers, and that makes a difference. It was not built for there to be that kind of pull on the water system there. And it's old.
For each house. It wasn't.
It was not, right. And nowadays, I mean, even more court was built with the intention, so the pipes are sized, the water lines are sized, everything is done for there to be washers and dryers there, and Ledgewood was not. So that really can have an effect on drawing the water pressure and rendering people on those lines without water.
Literally have my shower stop.
Okay, but we'll look at water pressure.
Same thing at once, and then all of a sudden I have no
Okay.
water in the shower.
I won't say no, I promise we will look at it.
Let somebody else in.
Maybe we could check into like upgrading if there, I don't know if there's like a short upgrade you can make or not, but if that's.
Well, one of the things that Chris mentioned earlier, when we talked about going to this new type of housing authority, is we don't have money to do that type of things right now. You know, as per the HUD and everything like that, we just don't have it. We're just back keeping up with what we have to do to every unit every year to keep it in good condition.
I mean, I do get the honest struggle with like why people want them.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I'm wondering if there's anything that you guys can check into on saying like, do you have to upgrade the whole thing, or is it the water flow in certain parts of the building? Or,
You'd have to.
you know what I mean?
We'd
Like,
probably have to take, it would probably start at the water main that comes off of.
yeah, I'm wondering if you could you just get more water in there, or the
No.
pipes in the building have to be sized up
$100,000
too?
to get the town.
Basically,
We basically got $340,000 this year, and every dime of that had to go to the high-rise because the state inspector told us that we will not be able to do anything at the high-rise until we get sprinklers in there. So the entire amount of money, that was it, $340,000 to take care of every single public housing property we have. Here, Moore Court, Ledgewood, the high-rise, everywhere.
Welcome to the.
$340,000, that's it. And we,
62 apartments.
Yeah, and it doesn't go.
it's 240 apartments now, so.
I'm just thinking it's very, yeah.
You know, and 4 properties, it's a shame, but that's what we have. So I can tell you that in the long list of priorities for capital improvements, you know, that, one, the water line business is gonna be very expensive and very intrusive, and it's not gonna make it near the list, because we've got crying needs all over the place. And I wish we didn't, but we do.
Well, that and the office wants to cut your funding. The main office, the big office, the one with white.
Well, that's, I mean, we are cut. We're, you know, I told you, we get 75 cents for every dollar we're supposed to get.
He wants to cut you even more.
And now, you know, this, so the capital money we have is just, it's ridiculous.
If you
anyhow,
put it in there, yeah, put the thought in there.
I will definitely take it up, okay?
That would be awesome.
Okay, we've got a few people here haven't spoken. Do you want to speak now or forever hold your peace?
No, you don't have to.
Yeah, they can always write in their.
You can always write in, and we will make sure that any written comment goes to the board. We did,
So anything written will be looked at.
absolutely.
Again.
Yeah, the only other question I have is when you guys have the building at the new, or the meeting at the new place, now that's, you have to buzz everybody to get in.
We'll make sure that everybody can
I can buzz my sister.
Don't worry.
So, I mean,
We will make accommodations so everybody can get in.
I do have a question. We no longer have an association here in Hayes Court. What happens to all of the HUD monies that was given to our association?
Oh, I'm really glad you asked.
Where does that go?
We have it. We have it in your account. And that's true for all the public housing places. If you don't have an association, we hold the money. We keep it in your account. And typically what happens is that a group of residents gets together and wants to have a cookout, or the families often want to have holiday parties, or, you know, a Halloween something. And if it seems reasonable and everybody's going to be invited and it's really clear that it's a community event, we give you the money so
Okay.
you can do your thing.
Yeah, is there something
It's
we
never
can
been
do
a
with
problem.
something we can do with the money, say, to improve this room? You know, since that money would stay here,
Um,
you know, that kind
I would discourage you from doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would discourage you from doing
why?
that. Why?
Yeah.
Because this room is really not the association's, it's really owned by the housing authority. And as much as I would love to take your money and, you know, use it for this, that money's for the association, it's really for the residents. So, but given that you asked, I talked with Lorelei Morissette, our resident services coordinator, and HUD in its infinite wisdom has many different forms of resident associations and resident councils and this and that. And one of the things that I've been sort of thinking about, and I talked to Lorelei, and I think we're going to try it starting next year, is to have a resident council, which would be representatives, I'm thinking 2 or 3 from every public housing development, that would come, and maybe we start on a monthly basis and then we make it quarterly or something like that, but we would meet with that council, so people wouldn't have the burden of being the president, which is really, but they would come and represent their development. And one thing I thought of right away was, you know, we could go over the agendas and what the board, we could make sure that everybody coming gets these agenda packets and sees the work that's being done and can comment on it.
That'd be a great idea.
You know, talk to us.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that every time we have done this, brought representatives from all the housing entities together, and we usually give you lunch, we have found that everybody loves it, and they all start swapping ideas and talking about what worked and what didn't work, and sort of relax, because you'll never get people to do that. And there's just this great sharing of ideas and support that goes on. And I just think that we need to try a different way, because associations are really hard. You know, people become presidents and then they're secretaries, and it's just such a weight on people, and it drives me nuts. I mean, I think the HUD, what HUD lays on associations is really meant for the big cities. And I met a woman that was the association president for a Boston Housing Authority, and they actually owned a strip mall. I mean, you know, mall, you know, a whole mall. And they were making tons of money, and that association was doing great, and she was the president of it. And I thought, you know, that's crazy. You know, that works in Boston, but that's not us.
We're
You
small
know,
down here too.
we're small. You know, people just want to have an opportunity to get together and have a good time, you know, and do fun things.
Yeah.
And when you lay all that responsibility and all that stuff, it always detracts from it. So I was thinking, if we went to this system where we sort of had resident representatives, we could, on a more consistent basis, be meeting with folks and letting you know what's going on. And I actually thought of it because I thought, wow, wouldn't it have been great to have that system going as we were developing these policies? We could have brought that group in and said, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
You know,
It would make us feel more a part of.
and it would have been really helpful, you know, instead of sort of getting it out on the table and having everybody, we could have had more of a process up front. So anyhow, long answer, but I'm sort of excited about trying that. And of course, HUD says everybody has to have elections, and they have to do this, they have to do that. And Lorelei and I are going to talk about it. And what we'd really like to do is make it so it's easy for developments to sort of appoint 3 people and, you know, have them come. And if they want to switch out people, that's fine. You know, so we'll be working on that with you folks to see how we can get something going that really accomplishes what I want, which is a better way to be communicating with residents on a regular basis and putting this stuff in front of residents without the burdens of these structures that then make it really tough.
good idea.
Well, I just want to add too, and I'll speak for the board, if they don't like it, they can yell at me later. But we would really love to have people at our meetings. And unless there's a problem, or something that we don't see people at our meetings at all. And the board would love to be able to, explain things to you that are going on and things of that sort. I mean, you're always welcome to our meetings, and it's a nice portion of the meeting to have people there. It's kind of hard just talking to a camera all the time.
I do watch them, just so you know.
We always set aside
Don't always
time for
make it.
resident
No,
participation
I
and
did the same
very
with select board
seldom we get
meetings.
people.
At least keep informed and,
So
But we don't hear
When I
back
can.
from you. That's the thing, we don't hear back
Yeah.
from you. Unless there's a problem, it would be nice to know that, to know that, what you think about things that keep on going on, So, as a person
Yeah,
that,
People haven't heard from.
we don't get the common paper here anymore since they put this new door on. They don't drop them inside here anymore. And Butch doesn't take them around to the boxes anymore, so we don't get them.
The comments.
The common paper, so when you have something warranted, that you put in the common paper, we don't get them here no more.
We just started getting them over.
yeah, they're hiding them in the laundry room now.
I don't think they're hidden, at least they're dry.
Well, I say that just because there is like half of the population of Ledgewood does not use the laundry room. So to the people that use the laundry room, they're not hidden. But I've been trying to tell people they're in there because I'm like, I know so many people that never go in the laundry room, so they miss those things. But
What is the guy here?
He stopped walking
yeah, I
around.
think that one of the reasons, is, I worked at the overflow shelter, and they would have to leave them outside during the day, and they would get blown away, they would do all this, and it was really not,
So they do.
it wasn't a good place to be. So, I mean, I think they'll put it in the laundry room, or they'll put it in someplace here, or arrange with somebody to be here when they're gonna deliver. That might work.
Well, we can call the Commons and see if there's something that some way we can get them delivered here. We really don't want those things going out to, that's the whole reason we put the system in. So, but we can try to get the Commons here, certainly.
Guarantee we're.
They'd be delighted to get them here.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, we used to, when I lived here, Butch used to deliver them.
So you guys work on it from your end too. We'll work it out.
Oh, no. Take them back, like, when we hand them out to people that want them. As far as, like, meetings, I probably would have come more, but this upset me, obviously. But in Ledgewood, we don't have a place, if somebody takes it down in the laundry room just because they want to be jerks. And our community, where the community room in the building is not really accessible 90% of the time. No fault of housing, really. It's just, well, I mean at Ledgewood.
Yeah,
No, I think that's a good point, and you made it before, Karen, and
Yeah.
we do need to look at it. One of the things that concerns us, we have a glass bulletin board, I think it's glass, it may be plexiglass at Moore Court, which is outside of the community room, and we should do that at Ledgewood. And I made a note last time about it, but I think the hesitation has been we don't want glass, we're afraid that kids are gonna, I'm not gonna blame kids, but somebody might throw something at it.
What
So
about the one
we
that's
have one that's
Brookfield? Yeah,
actually
it's kind of
vandalized
small.
once in the 9 years I've done there.
It's over where the maintenance building is. With the walkway.
Yeah, that glass one,
Okay.
it's kind of been hijacked by,
Well, it's not big enough either, but I remember when we had asked this one to be put up, and I loved it when I was here.
yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm
I don't
talking about. I'd
know.
like to get something like that we could put near the community room and
is there
or
something?
near the mailboxes.
That would be
And
good,
then
near the
we can-
mailbox would be awesome.
Yeah, see what we can do, yeah.
I don't think glass would be better than plexiglass though. I was gonna say plexiglass, but then people are gonna be more apt to scratch at it than break. But I know the one by the building on the laundry room, like, I've been there like 9 years and it's literally only once has it been vandalized. And that was actually an outside person that got a no trespassing on because that's some vandalized laundry room and it was like a big huge spree up through there. But
Well,
that's like the only time I remember it being like seriously damaged. There was a couple times it got scraped, somebody carved in the wood.
let me see what we can do, but it's a really good point. And,
I don't know, that seemed like.
and we need to be better about getting things posted, you know, we get them to the paper and we need to, you know, it's hard to get things out onto the property, so we need to take responsibility for that. But I'd like to get a bulletin board out there, I thought that was a good suggestion, and you have one over here?
Yeah, about the paying the rent,
Yes.
at our last meeting here, you stated something about furnishing us with postage paid envelopes.
Yeah,
I wonder where that stands, and can we use the drop boxes until we get the envelopes?
yes, I'm glad you asked, because the envelopes are coming, but we had, when we postponed all of this until January 1st, we postponed everything.
Okay.
So we will not take away the drop boxes until after January 1. But the envelopes will be coming, and they will be at the site offices. And so it'll be more than, it'll be sort of a soft handing them out, you know, it won't be all bells and whistles, but they will be there, and you will be able to get some. You are not, it's not mandatory to use them yet. And if this becomes effective January 1, then that's when it would be effective, and we would remove the drop boxes then.
Okay.
So that wasn't clear, but when we push this out, everything got pushed out.
Okay,
Okay?
Anybody else?
But they're coming.
thank you.
I'm sure they're.
No, really, you know what, I want to say thank you to the board, you know, and hoping that this relationship with us all can continue.
How about the little guy with the brown hair? You got anything to say?
Ginger?
Ginger. I think you're out.
She didn't want to play a game.
Well, thank you all, Karen, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It was very helpful, and when I went back, I hope that, I really realized that the tone of the first draft was a little, it was not the tone that we needed to have. So it's been a very good process, and we will certainly look into the portable washers. I promise. I'll look, I can't promise the decision, but I promise to look into them. So I do think we have, I think the Housing Authority and the board has a better product for your involvement and the discussions we've had.
I have a couple of questions. For one, I asked actually for the whole thing, the entire thing, and I noticed there's a lot of things missing. There was questions about if anything was being changed on things. One, I do have a question here on wording. When we talked about dress at the last meeting, we were talking about shirts and shoes. What is this whole thing? We can't walk out in our nightwear. What does that mean?
That means we don't want people walking in the common areas in their nightwear. We have people that walk around in very, very skimpy nightwear.
Is that like skimpy nightwear, or like if I come out with my long dress over my long johns? Because that's my
If you're
nightwear.
covered up, we don't care.
I'm kind of trying to verify. Are you
we
talking
have-
like boxer shorts,
Yes,
skimpy
yes,
lingerie?
that's what we're
Okay.
talking about.
I just,
That's what
because
we're
I'm
talking
like, my nightwear, I think of like, I'm wearing sweatpants.
No,
and
no,
long johns with a big
no,
shirt. That's what I sleep in.
Victoria,
It's
outside.
Yeah, that's it.
I sleep in the morning.
No, no.
But I do
we're
tend to come
really-
out with my coffee in the
No,
morning
we're
and not
really-
be dressed.
Nope,
Okay.
we're really talking about.
I just wanted to
boxer shorts
verify.
and very see-through
Yeah.
negligees.
All right, I was trying to verify that I was actually interpreting that right.
We're interpreting it right.
No,
I think you'll be fine.
because I had somebody ask me.
It's a matter of decorum more than anything else.
Yeah.
You didn't look close enough until like your long johns, you know what I mean? Wouldn't have even known if you didn't look that close. I mean, everything's covered.
Just respecting everybody.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, you know, thankfully I don't have to deal with the guy anymore because he's not my neighbor, but I had big issues with the neighbor because he'd come out in his boxers and fly wide open. It's like a little too much, buddy, you know. Like, I'd be fine, come out in my johns as long as I'm doing things, you know, just don't need to see anything, you know? Like, no, I totally agree with that. The other question I had was I still not quite feeling clear about the whole policy on the shade thing. Like, are we being, like, because I was just
No,
told.
let me tell you, the policy on the shade thing has been substantially changed.
Okay, because I can't find it.
Yeah, it's in a new draft, it's rewritten.
I feel like they didn't give me the whole thing. Like, I
No, you do,
seriously-
you should have,
Because I
18
read through
pages.
this and I'm not finding anything
You
on
have
it.
18 pages? Because maybe you didn't get all of them.
So I'm wondering, like, maybe I should check the notes.
The last
And
page
we
is the 18 and 18.
What?
Does your last page say 18 and 18? On the rear back.
It's very fast.
So if you do a whole
Yeah,
like,
but-
sometimes they skip a spot too, you know, the ones that do it automatically.
Yeah, I think I'm.
It's under, it's on page 8, and it's under exteriors and common areas.
And the operative language now is the very last sentence, last two sentences of the first paragraph under that. Any window covering must not create a safety hazard. Anything that creates an issue of property hazard which is not permitted. So if we walk in and even see drapes that are so long they're hanging on your electric heater,
That is a struggle.
we're gonna say, you gotta fix them.
I've invested in
It's still mine.
safety pins
It's not-
sometimes just to safety pin this sucker
Right,
up.
so it's not, so all that language is gone, it's about
I guess
fire safety.
my other question was, there was talk about charging us to replace the shades in Ledgewood, and
Yes.
I was just informed that all my shades are gonna be replaced, but nobody's gonna be able to answer, like, if I get charged for them, because like, I can tell you exactly how they broke. They're cheap and they rip every time you pull them down, they fly up. I've been requesting since I moved in there or changing them, because both me and my daughters have been nailed in the face a couple times. I broke a coffee cup one morning. Because when you grab them, they fly up so much that if you hold it, it rips the bottom. If you don't, they fly off and hit you. At least half of them in my apartment, not every single one. Some of them like just won't even pull down right.
Well,
And this was all within like a couple months of moving in.
well, I can certainly talk to the people about that, but by and large, the shades seem to hold up better than bad. So you may have just gotten a bad set of shades.
Actually, the shades that I got in my other apartment were the same way. They replaced them once and they, same thing.
Can you put, oh, sorry.
I mean, some worse than others as far as the flying up real fast, but as far as the breaking on the bottom, it always seems to tear right above where the wood is. You know, just from pulling it down or putting them up, like.
Okay.
Can you put just like a, if you can go under, natural wear and tear, like after a year?
And I've never had them last a year.
Well,
I mean, not all of them. I've
I'm
never
saying-
had more than maybe one in my apartment last whole year.
But I have.
And it was like the one that never got touched.
Can you put like, okay, after a year, okay, everything's very cheap today, everything.
Well, that's really, yeah, that's
It's kinda
really,
like-
that's gonna be judgment, maintenance, judgment decision based on the quality and the kind of shade that we're buying. So we did have a conversation about the quality and the kinds of shades, and we will continue to have that. If it appears, I have to say, Kim, most people don't have that serious a problem with their shades. Most of the time it is,
Can point
wear
out
and
multiple
tear.
apartments that have
Yeah.
the same damage to their shade. That's why I'm like, how could that be just me? There's
But-
somebody in here
so
that has
that's-
shades in the
that's-
same condition that ripped in the same spot.
that's a maintenance decision again based on the quality of the materials that are bought. And frankly, I can't say anything about the quality of the shades that have been bought, but I know we've talked about that.
Just to throw it in their head, well, really look at how long and what they're made of.
Well, I'd rather spend a little bit more money on something that's gonna hold up frankly. I mean, it's better for us, it's better for you.
The kind of cloth ones that they used to have.
So,
I don't even buy those anymore.
and that is on the radar to take a good hard look at the quality of the shades that we are buying.
Or everything today's not cheap,
So-
so.
I just have 5 minutes left on tape, so let you know.
Ready?
I know, I'm good.
You had a question?
So I'm gonna get charged for the ones that they're gonna replace all of them, even the bottom broken ones.
That would be maintenance, I think she just said.
Yeah.
maintenance.
Well, I'm just kinda confused, I'm like, cause I mean, not all of them are even broken, I was told they're all gonna be replaced, but, and I was like, am I gonna be charged? And she's like, probably, and I was like, why, like, I don't understand why I'm being charged for something that falls apart.
Yeah,
I
no
don't
doubt Chris will get back to you on that.
Like, you might,
I
I mean,
either
are we
I or-
being forced to have shades?
Either I or Courtney or Jeff will get back to you, but I
I mean, are we
have
being forced to have them? Because I have other covers in my window.
Well, I think Jack explained this at the last meeting, and it is an important point. When we go into apartments now and we find things that are broken
Am I right?
or need replacing, and they are on our ticket, they need to be replaced for purposes of the housing authority, we're gonna fix them now. And if they are not normal wear and tear, if they appear to be damage that was done by the tenant or is under the control of the tenant, then you're gonna get charged for it. So what has happened is that in the past, we have had apartments where we haven't been as rigorous in making repairs that we needed to every time we walked into the apartment. The tenant left, and I can tell you, we had an apartment where we spent 3 months repairing it. And we got no money from the tenant for that repair. So we just can't do this anymore. It's just, it's not good for the tenant,
I'm
it's
talking
not good
about
for us. So,
shades that are breaking on their own, and I'm being told that shades that aren't even broken need to be replaced.
and I made that note, and
See, that's
either
the same thing.
I can't
Courtney,
give you an answer right now, Kim, though. She has to go.
The other question I have is inspection was just done. I made a maintenance report. I just had a maintenance done in my house. They only had one on the maintenance report, and they were only fixing one problem. I have like counters that are warping, and I believe it's because they were not sealed properly. And they were slightly warped when I moved in, but they are just continuing, no matter how I try to keep them dry.
okay,
They're still warping, and it's right in the seam. When inspection happened, I tried to point it out, and the manager pretty much didn't even want to turn my kitchen light on. And I tried to stop her, and
This is something I think you'll take care of.
well, I'm just wondering, like, wouldn't that be under some of the maintenance you'd want to do
yes.
in a house like that?
Anybody else got any
Reported
questions?
a couple times.
I'm good, let's go home and eat.
I've been waiting here for a long time. I want to hear what you got to say.
There's nothing really. With pets, has there been any changes with that?
The only change in the pets has been a point of clarification that we are not allowing visiting pets.
Okay. With, but you can still have 2 pets.
You can still have the pet, the only part of the pet law that was changed, or pet rule, was around visiting pets.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a lot of problems with visiting dogs in particular, not snakes.
But the pets can't go outside unless they're on a leash.
Yes, they must be on a leash.
Yeah, I don't want my dog to get hit.
So Chris, what I'm hearing is, you just told me I can have 2 dogs?
No.
No, that's not.
You didn't hear that right.
Nice try, nice try. You almost did it.
The pet rules are specific to developments.
One cat, one dog.
So Hayes and Melrose have a set, because actually Hyde has separate rules on pets for elderly, non-elderly, disabled housing, and older housing. So we have to have 2 separate rules.
Any more
So all we
questions?
did was change
No,
Visiting
I'm one of the ones that's
all
having fit about that, so.
No, we did.
You want to hear a motion?
The only other question I have is there a specific spot at Lakewood that you would post when the meetings are happening? Because that's been confusion for a while.
Well, that's what I was just talking to Karen about. And if we can get one of those things up before winter hits, I think we'll certainly.
So it would be on that.
As long as they're allowed.
Yeah. So I will talk, we have a meeting tomorrow and I'll bring that up and see if we can get that up. Because it would be great. I mean, I'd like to have that too.
There's been a lot of confusion on when, what time, and how to get the information at the time.
This
So,
thing looks great here.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, awesome.
Yeah, as long as I have a spot to look at, I'm fine. I just wanna, know, like, okay, I'm interested, I got the time, where do I find in the next meeting?
That it's big enough
Yeah,
that people know that it's involved.
yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned.
Who was it?
Chris,
Lori and then me.
Lori and Lori?
My dear Lord.
All those in favor of adjournment, signify by
Always a
saying
pleasure to see you.
Okay.